We're part of the family that's been born again. Part of the family whose love knows no end. For Jesus has saved us and made us his own. Now we're part of the family that's on its way home. And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs. Sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family. When a brother meets sorrow, we all feel his grief. When he's passed through the valley, we all feel relief. Together in sunshine, together in rain, together in victory, through his precious name. And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs. Sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family. And the sun go before us, we'll all meet again, just inside the city. As we enter in, there'll be no more parting. With Jesus we'll be together forever, God's family. And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs. Sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family.
God, thank you so much for this day. I'm glad that we could have worshiped together in person this morning. Thank you so much for everything you do. I just pray that as Gary and Jason go through their lesson, their Bible class, that we will learn more about the Proverbs and what significance they have to our lives. Lord, thank you so much for this beautiful day and waking us up every morning. Lord, I just pray that everyone had a safe time celebrating the 4th of July. Thank you so much for all that you do. And it's through your son's name we pray. Amen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're back together again this evening.
Once again, back together.
Isn't that awesome?
Just like old times.
That is wonderful.
Yep.
We should do this twice a week instead of once a week.
I'm up for it.
That would be fun to do
It
this
would be fun.
all the time.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, I was going to ask you first how your birthday was.
Oh, my birthday was so good. Everybody had a big party.
Fireworks.
All sorts of things. And
Bands playing.
It was just good old-fashioned normal birthday party for Gary.
Well, that's great.
They've made it a national event, and it's even more annual than the May Day parade, the May Fete.
That's right. They didn't cancel
That
your
one got
birthday.
canceled, but they did not cancel my birthday this
Yeah,
year. So
that's good.
I'm happy.
Good.
What parts? Did you ever answer my question?
I didn't. I threw one back at you.
I thought you did that.
I changed the subject.
That's because you don't know what we're going to talk about today.
It's on the screen right there.
Oh, okay. They don't know there's a screen right there. They can probably guess
did
there
I?
it is.
Oh,
But now they
we've got a
know.
teleprompter.
We have a teleprompter right in front of us.
Yeah. Well, we're covering Proverbs 6 through 9 tonight.
How many is that?
That should be 4
6, 7,
chapters.
8, 9 chapters. You have to remind me again. How many? If they would have read that this week, how many per day?
4/7 of a chapter every day.
Okay.
Yeah, or something like that.
I forget these things. So today we're going to talk about Proverbs. And
Yes.
let's just begin with chapter 6 then.
Let's jump right in.
And not surprisingly, chapter 6 begins with the words, my son.
We should be familiar.
Now,
with
we have about 10 of those in these 7 chapters.
10 my son speeches, yes, in the first 7 chapters of Proverbs.
So we have a few left for today, I think, and that'll wrap us up.
Right.
He begins in chapter 6 talking about what we would call a work ethic, about what we do when we work and being responsible and so forth. And he begins the first part of Proverbs talking about 3 different kinds of people with the wrong work ethic.
Okay.
And the first one is someone who is surety for a neighbor. And we'll talk about that in just a second. The passage, though, in Proverbs 6, 1 through 5, says, my son, if you have become surety for your neighbor, have given a pledge for a stranger, if you have been snared with the words of your mouth, have been caught with the words of your mouth, do this then, my son, and deliver yourself, since you have come into the hand of your neighbor. Go, humble yourself, and importune your neighbor. Do not give sleep to your eyes, nor slumber to your eyelids. Deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hunter's hand, and like a bird from the hand of the fowler. When I first looked at that, I was thinking about someone who would co-sign a loan. That's what we would think of today. Someone's getting a loan, they need somebody to sign for the co-sign the note for them. And that was my first impression. But as I looked into it, it's a little bit more than that. It's someone who is guaranteeing anybody's debts, current and future, past, current, and future. And so what I'm doing, if I do this, is saying I'll cover whatever debt he has.
Wow.
If he doesn't pay the debt, you just come to me and I will cover it.
Okay.
And as one person pointed out, if you don't have the money to lend to somebody for their need, then you certainly don't have enough money to give them a blank check.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's being described. That's what's being described here. Someone who is surety for a neighbor. And one place described this as easygoing thoughtlessness. They give no thought to what they're doing. I think this might be an important topic
I believe you're right.
because it shows up in Proverbs 11:15, Proverbs 17:18, Proverbs 20 verse 16, Proverbs 22:26, Proverbs 27:13.
Mm-hmm.
This may be an important topic.
I think it is. And it struck me that the kind of the end of that passage was how urgent the escape from that lifestyle is.
Exactly.
Like a gazelle escaping the predator.
And you notice that the advice to the father to the son is do it now and don't sleep.
Right.
It doesn't matter what time of night it is. Get yourself out of this.
Right.
Don't wait till tomorrow. Get out of it because you're in big trouble.
Right.
The second group of people that it talks about that the father's warning his son about it'll be the sluggard or the slothful, the lazy. He begins in verse 6 of Proverbs 6 by saying, go to the ant, O sluggard, observe her ways and be wise, which having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her food in the summer and gathers her provision in the harvest. How long will you lie down, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and your poverty will come in like a vagabond, and your need like an armed man. This is not the last time that we're going to read about this in the book of Proverbs. There are some other real graphic descriptions of lazy people coming up. And this is a person who's just slothful. They just don't do anything. And it was described as laziness and incapacity. And so the father warns his son against going out and being surety for somebody. And he warns his son against just being lazy and not working. The third warning, first of all, I want to point out that he says, go to the ant. And there will be another time in the book of Proverbs where he refers to the ants in chapter 30 and verse 25, where he says that the ants are not a strong folk, but they prepare their food in the summer. The point there is about the same, is they are prepared ahead of time. They don't wait till winter to start looking for food when there isn't any, because they go ahead and do it ahead of time. And so they are the opposite of someone who is slothful. They are proactive and they work hard. The third category of people is described by the book of Proverbs as somebody who's worthless. It says in Proverbs 6 from verse 12, a worthless person, a wicked man, is the one who walks with a false mouth, who winks with his eyes, who signals with his feet, who points with his fingers, who with perversity in his heart devises evil continually, who spreads strife. Therefore his calamity will come suddenly. Instantly he will be broken, and there will be no healing. This is that shyster who comes up with this get-rich-quick scheme. Boy, do I have a deal for you. I've got a bridge for you. All these different things. It's a no-fail offer. It's limited time, though. You better act now, because everybody's going to get into it so quickly that it's going to disappear. And I had to think about Bernie Madoff and people like that, not judging his character, but judging what he did.
Yeah.
You know, Ponzi scheme comes from a man named Ponzi.
Yeah.
And there are people out there like that who come up with these schemes. Instead of working, they come up with ways of stealing from people.
Right.
I get phone calls from them all the time.
I get emails from Nigerian princes
They
at
wanna-
least once a week.
Don't you send them your account information so they can give you those millions of dollars?
They haven't put it in my account yet.
You know, they spoof telephone numbers and call to let me know about my car warranty.
Mm-hmm.
I got a call that I can, with help for my student loan. I first graduated from college in 1972. I do not have a student loan, if you can imagine that. I have not had a student loan. I've gone to college a lot since then, but I still don't have a student loan.
Yeah.
But they call to let me know that they can help me with my student loan. And I drive a 1999 car. I would sure like for them to give me a warranty on that
Right.
thing.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are just trying to take advantage of people, and especially the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of person that's being described here, is someone who, instead of working, they just want to steal from somebody.
Right.
And so the father warns his son against being surety for a neighbor, about just being a lazy bum, or about trying to promote some get-rich-quick scheme and take advantage of other people. Following in Proverbs chapter 6, from verses 16 to 19, is one of those lists of 7 things. And it says, there are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him: haughty eyes, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked plans, feet that run rapidly to evil, a false witness who utters lies, and one who spreads strife among brothers. Does God hate something?
He hates several somethings.
He hates several somethings.
Yeah.
I don't guess it's right for us to say that God doesn't hate anything, because it says God hates these things. He hates haughty eyes. He hates a lying tongue. We won't even go to Revelation where it talks about the people who go to the lake of fire, will we? No. And so all these things God hates. And if it holds true to what we've mentioned before, that it leads up to the last one, and that's the main focus, that may be the case here. The first 6 are body parts:
Mm-hmm.
eyes, tongue, hands, heart, feet, the mouth, or the tongue again. But the bottom one, the last one, is the person who spreads strife among brothers.
Right.
And all of those things do that. They result in creating strife, creating problems. And so God hates these things. He does not like discord, right, and the lack of unity. And so he hates these things. And it leads down to that last one of spreading strife among brothers. Here's another my son in chapter 6, verses 20 through 35. It begins by focusing once again on the teaching. And we run into that frequently throughout the book of Proverbs, pointing out how great the teaching is and what it is. It says, my son, from verses 20 to 23, my son, observe the commandment of your father, and do not forsake the teaching of your mother. Bind them continually on your heart, tie them around your neck. When you walk about, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. And when you wake, they will talk to you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching is light, and reproofs for discipline are the way of life. It says, observe the commandment of your father. Do not forsake the teaching of your mother. Bind them continually on your heart. Tie them around your neck. You know, in the Old Testament and even the New Testament times, they would take this literally, and they would take a scripture and write it on a piece of paper and put it on a phylactery and put it on their head, right, or on their arm. And I think they probably missed the point of, it's not to be physically here, it's to be in your head, not on your head. It is to be on your heart, not on some outside around your body part. You tie them around your neck, but not in the sense that it's a necklace, but it's a part of that very important part of your body.
Right.
And that's how we need to treat the commandments and the teachings. And I love this. When you walk about, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will talk to you. Can you think of a better offer than that?
That pretty well covers night and day.
That is. That's the best offer anybody could get. It points out that the commandment is a lamp and the teaching is a light, and even reproofs for discipline are the way of life. We learn from discipline and from being disciplined. And then he talks about adultery from verses 24 through 35. And once again, there is an actual warning from a father to a son about adultery. And we shouldn't ever shortchange that. There are a lot of moral lessons in the book of Proverbs. It's also, though, about spiritual adultery. The Israelites were almost always guilty of spiritual adultery. And the same danger exists today, that we would commit spiritual adultery. That passage from verse 24 on down to verse 35 says, to keep you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, nor let her catch you with her eyelids. For on account of a harlot, one is reduced to a loaf of bread, and an adulteress hunts for the precious life. Can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Or can a man walk on hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So is the one who goes into his neighbor's wife. Whoever touches her will not go unpunished. Men do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy himself when he is hungry. But when he is found, he must repay sevenfold. He must give all the substance of his house. The one who commits adultery with a woman is lacking sense. He who would destroy himself does it. Wounds and disgrace he will find, and his reproach will not be blotted out. For jealousy enrages a man, and he will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not accept any ransom, nor will he be content, though you give many gifts. I apologize. Said we wouldn't do this. I just cannot help but go to Hebrews chapter 13. In verse 4, where it says, Let marriage be held in honor among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled. For fornicators and adulterers God will judge. Someone may think they're getting by with it, but ultimately they will not get by with it, because God is the final judge.
Right.
And so it is exactly right when it says that you will pay a price.
Yeah.
What about chapter 7?
Chapter 7 is the final my son speech in the book of Proverbs. We have 10 of those speeches kind of scattered through the first 7 chapters rather. And chapter 7 is a single unit that has that final my son speech in it. So as you think about some of the things we've talked about, sometimes in those lists of things, it's that final one that gets the most emphasis, or maybe is the big point that we're trying to get to. And we talked about maybe this is kind of that final piece of advice for his son as he is ready to assume, the mantle of adulthood on his own or something like that. And so this may be the really important one. Not that the others are not important, but this may be the one that I want to end on as far as giving my son in these specific instructions.
And you mentioned that was probably, each time he said that was to call attention, like, right, get his attention back, my son, to bring him back. And if that's true, this may be the my son of the my sons.
Right. This may be the one as he's ready to walk out the door. Son, listen to this one before you go. And so we'll jump right in with that final my son instruction, sort of an introduction here in verses 1 through 5. My son, keep my words and treasure my commandments within you. Keep my commandments and live, and my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend. that they may keep you from an adulteress, from the foreigner who flatters with her words. So we have there kind of some of the similar things that you just pointed out in chapter 6, and we've made mention of several times throughout these first few chapters, that there are different ways of describing the instruction that we're receiving. So he calls them my words, my commandments, my teaching. And then he has descriptions for each of those things. They're a treasure. They provide life. They are the focal point. They're what you're supposed to fix your eye upon. And so they are really, really important. And he wants to get that point across, and he does so over and over and over as he's instructing his son. Is it okay to repeat things that you want to teach your children?
That might be a good idea.
It might be that the more often they hear it, they begin to understand that it's important. And so as this wise father is trying to teach his son and pass on wisdom that he has learned, he keeps repeating these things and really is driving the point home. And here he says wisdom and understanding are a defense against being led astray. And so there is benefit. There is something useful about following wisdom. It takes you to the places where you want to go, but there's also what would you call it? An inoculation, or a what are those shots you get?
Yeah, a vaccine.
Vaccination. That's the word I was looking for.
Inoculation's a good word too.
A vaccination against those results that you don't want. And so there's a twofold benefit to following after wisdom, that it takes us where we want to go and it keeps us from going places we don't want to go. And so then we get into the heart of chapter 7, and really it's kind of a drama. It's a story, and it's a story about seduction. And so we have this kind of central part of the chapter being this unfolding story about a woman who is enticing a young man to go someplace where he really shouldn't go. And so we'll jump into that. The introduction to that part, verses 6 through 9, is a description of the young man. For at the window of my house, I looked out through my lattice, and I saw among the naive, I discerned among the youths, a young man lacking sense, passing through the street near her corner. And he takes the way to her house in the twilight, in the evening, in the middle of the night, and in the darkness. Think about how this young man is described. He's naive. He's lacking sense. He's in the wrong place at the wrong time. What is he doing out that time of night? Why is he not home? Why is he not doing what he should be doing, or taking care of his own affairs, his own business, rather than being out at a place where he can fall into temptation? And ultimately, he is easily led astray. It doesn't take much work for this adulteress, for this seductress, to get him to follow after her. He really, it seems, is out looking for trouble, and he is easily led astray. Verses 10 through 13 then give us a description of the woman. It says, behold, a woman comes to meet him, dressed as a harlot and cunning of heart. She is boisterous, rebellious. Her feet do not remain at home. She is now in the streets, now in the squares, and lurks by every corner. She seizes him and kisses him, and with a brazen face she says to him. And so this description is, she's dressed as a harlot. She's making no secret about what her intention is. She is not, she's not sugarcoating things. She is cunning. She is boisterous. She's rebellious. She is out on the prowl. She's like a predator out looking for prey. She lurks. She is aggressive. She follows after him. She grabs him, and she forces him to focus upon her. She is brazen, and that's not the kind of girl that Dad's trying to teach you to go after.
No, not hardly.
She is the opposite of that. And then we have verses 14 to 20 is the speech, and this is the woman's attempt to get the young man's attention. It's her offer. And so she says to him, I was due to offer peace offerings. Today I have paid my vows. Therefore I have come out to meet you, to seek your presence earnestly, and I found you. I spread out my couch with coverings, with colored linens of Egypt. I've sprinkled my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let us drink our fill of love until morning. Let us delight ourselves with caresses. For the man is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He has taken a bag of money with him. At full moon, he will come home. And so many things stand out here. She has a feast to share. She has the remnants of the peace offering, if that really is what she has done and been to make an offering. Part of that offering would have been offered on the altar. Part of it would have gone to the priest. But then part of the peace offering always went back to the people who made that offering. And then it was customary for them to share it with their friends, with their families, and for them to have a feast as a part of eating that peace offering. And so she says, look, I have this and it's ready for you. It's ready for you to share with me. She says she was looking for him specifically. That's not true. That's not true at all. She doesn't know who he is. She's lying. And she's making him feel very special. She's making him feel like he is the man of her dreams. And in reality, he is an easy mark.
He's the first one to come by.
That's all that matters. She has prepared her couch for him. She offers herself in a way that perhaps, no other woman has offered herself before, or in a way that, that is very seductive and tempting for him. And she offers herself in that way. And she seals the deal by saying her husband is away and he won't return soon. Well, that's got to give you some comfort, I guess.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That fixes it right there.
Yeah, that makes it okay that he won't return. Well, that's
you're not going to get caught. That's all that matters, isn't it? Getting caught.
That's all that matters in this scenario, and that's all she's offering him, is that we won't be caught.
Yeah.
And so then we have verses 21 through 23 is the fall. Here's the result. With her many persuasions, she entices him. With her flattering lips, she seduces him. Suddenly he follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter, or as one in fetters to the discipline of a fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare. So he does not know that it will cost him his life. And so she is persuasive. She makes her case. She has a lot to offer in a physical, in a momentary pleasure kind of way. She has a lot to offer. And if you're not one that is prone to think about long-term consequences, then her offer sounds very good. And the young man gives into that, and he follows her. But think of how it's described, like an ox to the slaughter. The ox doesn't know what's happening and can't do anything about it, even if it does. And so there's no undoing that or getting away from that result that's coming. Like the discipline of a fool. I work in a middle school, and not to call any of my students foolish, but when you give the same kid the same punishment day after day after day for doing the same thing, and they keep doing it, something's got to change. Mm-hmm. And so trying to discipline a fool is a worthless exercise. And then those final thoughts about the bird that is caught in the trap. He's so caught up in the moment that he can't grasp the consequences of his actions. If you've seen, shows like the wilderness shows where they trap food and or trap their animals, and you see that animal reaching into the snare or walking through the snare, and the animal has no idea what's coming. It's going for the bait on the other side of that snare. And then that trap is set and the animal is caught, and he has no idea what's about to happen, that it's ultimately going to cost him his life. Mm-hmm. And so it's a tragic scene. It's a drama that is played out for us there in that chapter, and it is a tragedy. The final admonition then given in verses 24 through 27. Now, therefore, my sons, listen to me and pay attention to the words of my mouth. Do not let your heart turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her paths. For many are the victims she has cast down, and numerous are all her slain. Her house is the way to Sheol, descending to the chambers of death. Hear my words. This is that final, my son, statement of the entire book. It's that final admonition. Listen to what I've said. It's almost begging. Please hear what I'm saying, because if you don't, it's going to hurt. And if you do, it's going to save you from that hurt. It's going to save you from that pain. Do not turn aside. Do not turn or stray from the words that I've said. And her victims are many. She's going to make you feel like you're the only person in the world, but she does this every night. She does this all the time. And you are just going to fall victim if you give in to her.
Good stuff.
It is. It's good instruction.
It is. It's from many different directions, many facets. Yeah. It is. Going on to Proverbs chapter 8, it talks about wisdom, not surprisingly. It focuses on wisdom. That's always a good thing, that chapter. It begins with the call from wisdom in Proverbs 8, verses 1 through 4. Does not wisdom call, and understanding lift up her voice? On top of the heights, beside the way, where the paths meet, she takes her stand. Beside the gates, at the opening to the city, at the entrance of the door, she cries out, to you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. It keeps repeating these contrasts between the seductress calling and what she does, and the traps that she lays, and then with wisdom and the call that she issues. And she calls. And we mentioned before that both of these women are actively seeking. Wisdom is seeking, the seductress is seeking. They're looking for people, but wisdom is doing it for their benefit, not for their destruction.
Right.
And so wisdom calls, and understanding lifts up her voice. It gives a person to understanding because she speaks on top of the heights, beside the way where the paths meet. She takes her stand beside the gates, at the opening to the city, at the entrance of the doors, any place where she's going to find somebody. Instead of trying to trap them the way the adulteress is, she cries out, "To you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men." And then she gives the reason why she does that. And that's begins in verses 5 through 9 of chapter 8. And actually, from here on out, it's in quotations because it's wisdom speaking. She started speaking at the very end of that last section. And so each one of these things we'll look at from now on in this chapter, just a continuation of her words. It's a quote. And in verses 5 through 9, she says, "O naive ones, discern prudence. And O fools, discern wisdom. Listen, for I shall speak noble things, and the opening of my lips will produce right things. For my mouth will utter truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the utterances of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing crooked or perverted in them. They are all straightforward to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge." And notice that she offers to naive ones, give them the chance to discern prudence, to fools to discern wisdom. She says, "Listen, I'm going to speak noble things. The opening of my lips will produce right things. My mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips." God hates a lying tongue. And wisdom says it's an abomination. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All utterances of my mouth are in righteousness, nothing crooked or perverted in them. It is straightforward to him who understands the right, and it's straightforward to those who find knowledge. And then we're given once again that comparison, choose, which is better. And we mentioned before that the whole book of Hebrews is basically a better. Jesus is better than those things, so why would you choose the lesser? And the same thing is done here in Proverbs chapter 8, verses 10 and 11. And again, it's a quote from, she's still speaking. "Take my instruction and not silver, and knowledge rather than choicest gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all desirable things cannot compare with her." What wisdom offers, the instruction that she offers, is preferable to silver. And knowledge is preferable to choicest gold. And wisdom is actually better than jewels. In fact, name anything desirable in the whole wide world, and it doesn't compare with her. There's nothing of value that compares with her.
Makes me think when Solomon had the opportunity to ask for anything his heart desired, and what did he ask for?
He asked for wisdom, and he understood that then.
Right.
And hopefully toward the end of his life, he understood it again.
Right.
He kind of wandered off a little bit there in between. But my hope is that he kind of came to his senses and realized his folly, and that's why he was wanting to pass this information on.
Right.
And so at the beginning, he understood this fact, that he didn't need riches, he didn't need victory over his enemies, he just needed wisdom. And God said, because you asked for the right thing, I'm going to give you those other things, but you made the right choice, right? Because you chose the thing that was the most valuable. It goes on to describe the associates of wisdom, who she associates with, in verses 12 through 14 of chapter 8. "I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride and arrogance and the evil way and the perverted mouth I hate. Counsel is mine and sound wisdom. I am understanding. Power is mine." Wisdom associates with prudence and knowledge and discretion, with counsel, sound wisdom, with understanding, and with power. She is closely tied with these things. These are her associates. But she does not associate with certain things. In fact, it says she hates these things, some of these things. She does not associate with evil or pride or arrogance or the evil way or a perverted mouth. She chooses her associates very carefully, and she associates with the right ones, but she does not associate with the wrong ones. And so she offers a certain kind of fruit, a certain kind of benefit because of who she is and what she does. And she points out in Proverbs 8 from verse 15, "By me kings reign and rulers decree justice. By me princes rule and nobles, all who judge rightly. I love those who love me, and those who diligently seek me will find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even pure gold, and my yield than choicest silver. I walk in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of justice, to endow those who love me with wealth, that I may fill their treasuries. She says that because of what I offer, kings reign and rulers decree justice, and princes and nobles rule. In fact, all who judge rightly are doing it according to the instruction that I provide. She says that I love those who love me. Those who diligently seek me are going to find me. Riches, honor, enduring wealth, and righteousness are with me. If you want those things, you need to be with me, because that's where they are. And again, we have that comparison. Her fruit is better than pure gold, and her yield is better than choicest silver. And look at all the things that she does as a reward. I walk in the way of righteousness. I walk in the midst of the paths of justice. I endow those who love me with wealth. I fill their treasuries. And we're not talking here about gold or silver or financial wealth. We're talking about real wealth and real treasures, the things that will last for eternity, not things that will be stolen or disappear. We're talking about, she offers things that are real. We mentioned once before her existence in Proverbs 8 from verse 22, that the Lord possessed me at the beginning of his way, before his works of old. From everlasting I was established, from the beginning, from the earliest times of the earth. When there were no depths I was brought forth, when there were no springs abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills I was brought forth. While he had not yet made the earth and the fields, nor the first dust of the world. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he inscribed a circle on the face of the deep. When he made firm the skies above, when the springs of the deep became fixed. When he set for the sea its boundary, so that the waters should not transgress his command. When he marked out the foundations of the earth. Then I was with him as a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the world, his earth, and having my delight in the sons of men. Didn't we mention once before the association between wisdom and the creation?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That there's this absolute tie, complete tie between wisdom and the creation and what God has made. And notice what she says. It was at the beginning of his way, before his works of old, that I was established from everlasting, from the beginning, from the earliest times of the earth. I was beside him then as a master workman. I was daily in his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the world, his earth, having my delight in the sons of men. Notice those words, delight and rejoicing. And it's just a tremendous amount of joy, being involved in the creation. Therefore, here is the end of her quotation there. This is what she wants them to do. Now therefore, O sons, listen to me, for blessed are those who keep my ways. Heed instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at my doorposts. For he who finds me finds life, and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me injures himself. All those who hate me love death. She says you need to listen to me. And it's more of those Beatitudes. Blessed are the ones who keep my ways, and blessed are the ones who heed my instruction. So she says, be wise, and don't neglect what I'm telling you, because the man who listens to me is blessed. You need to watch daily at my gates and wait at my doorposts. That's where you need to be, instead of the fool who's lingering around the house of the adulteress, around the door of the adulteress, just waiting to be taken in. This is where we need to hang out, is beside her door. She says, he who finds me finds life, and he who finds me obtains favor from the Lord. But he who sins against me injures himself, and all those who hate me love death. Not a difficult choice.
Right.
It's a pretty clear-cut one or the other. And if you're wise, you'll treat wisdom with the right kind of choice, because it's an obvious choice.
It is, and it strikes me how it's not passive. It very much is a proactive pursuit.
And that's true through this whole book, that it is a pursuit on both parts, because she's seeking us and we need to seek her. And we're just not, if we just sit around, we're going to end up in the wrong place. We need to seek her because she's seeking us. And so you're right. It is an active pursuit. It's not something we just do passively.
Well, let's take a look then at Proverbs chapter 9. And this is if you take the first 9 chapters of Proverbs, they are different than the final chapters 10 through 31. They're structured differently. They're more narrative in style, and they kind of have these stories that unfold, and the Proverbs are scattered out throughout those stories as kind of a little nuggets or things that we're supposed to pick up along the way as a part of these narrative stories, versus chapter 10 beginning next week, where we'll start seeing just these single proverbs, where they're just not very much narration, just little pithy statements of wisdom.
And I've already started looking at those, and it's a little bit hard to categorize those.
They get very. It's going to be much more difficult to outline than these sections are. It'll be interesting to see how we go from there, because I don't know how.
I don't know how interesting that's going to be, but you might find 2 or 3 verses that fit together, and you're going to find one verse that doesn't have anything to do with it, and you're going to
right.
But they are going to be in the form of, I guess you'd call them couplets. This but that,
right?
This but that, but a few of them this and that.
Yeah.
But a good many of them, at least for next week, are contrasts.
Okay.
I noticed that ahead of time. It's so and so, but such and such.
Well, you've gotten further than I have.
So I know, but I'm not sure how far I'm going to get, because it's a challenge to organize those. So,
yeah,
as we said earlier, this is a narrative. This first part, that's a little bit easier to follow.
Right. And so in our final narrative then in chapter 9, we have a contrast once again between Lady Wisdom and Dame Folly. And we begin in verses 1 through 12 with the invitation of Lady Wisdom. And verses 1 through 3 give us a description of who Lady Wisdom is. It says, Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She has prepared her food. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her maidens. She calls from the tops of the heights of the city. And so there we have Lady Wisdom portrayed in she is very proactive. And it strikes me as we think back to some of the things we looked at just this evening on, take the example of the ant that is busy and is out doing things to prepare for the work that is ahead, to prepare for that time that is ahead. She's doing all that. She has gone out and done what she needed to do to prepare this banquet, to prepare this feast, even before anybody arrives. She doesn't know if anybody's coming or not. Is anybody going to heed her call? But she's going to prepare herself as though that call is going to be answered. And so she's ready for a crowd to come into her banquet. Verses 4 through 6 then give that invitation to Lady Wisdom's banquet. She says, whoever is naive, let him turn in here. To him who lacks understanding, she says, come, eat of my food and drink of the wine I have mixed. Forsake your folly and live and proceed in the way of understanding. And she goes out, and this is like we've mentioned several times already. She is calling out to the naive. She is seeking those who need her. And she is doing so from a position of altruism. She wants to help. She wants to instruct. She wants to better their lives. The joy that she gets is not from seeing them fail, but from seeing them succeed. When they put her methods to work and their life gets better, that brings her joy. Versus what we'll see later with Dame Folly and how she receives her joy. Verses 7 through 9 then of this chapter kind of give us a little bit of an aside, almost a little word of encouragement or word of statement to the people who teach wisdom. And so it almost takes us out of the narrative for a moment, but it says, he who corrects a scoffer gets dishonor for himself, and he who reproves a wicked man gets insults for himself. Do not reprove a scoffer lest he hate you. Reprove a wise man and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man and he will still be wiser. Teach a righteous man and he will increase his learning. And so then we have that idea of of who is able to benefit from wisdom. People who are scoffers, who are not interested in what wisdom has to offer, it's a waste of time. But to those who are interested in wisdom, they're going to receive that instruction, they're going to receive that discipline, and it will benefit them. And so she has something to offer, but we have to be prone to accept what she has to offer. We have to make ourselves be in tune with what wisdom has to give us. Verses 10 through 12 then finally give us a summary of Lady Wisdom's appeal. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years of life will be added to you. If you are wise for yourself, and if you scoff, you alone will bear it. So the fear of the Lord there is the beginning of knowledge, and what she has to offer will benefit. It will bring about excellent results for the one who accepts it. But if you scoff at what she has to say, then you're going to stand alone. She has no help for you. She can't help you if you're not willing to accept what she has to say. Verses 13 through 18 then give us the invitation of Dame Folly. So here we have the contrasting offer. We had the offer of Lady Wisdom. Now we have the offer of Folly. And verses 13 and 14 give us a description of who Dame Folly is. It says, the woman of folly is boisterous. She is naive and knows nothing. And she sits at the doorway of her house on a seat by the high places of the city. And so she puts herself in a prominent place, and she has a lot to say, but it doesn't amount to anything. I've heard that referred to before as when a group of people who don't know what they're talking about get together and have a discussion, it's a pooling of ignorance. Mm-hmm. And she is the chief communicator in this pooling of ignorance. And she talks and talks and talks and has nothing to say. And nothing good comes of what she has to say. And then we have in verses 15 through 17, the invitation to her banquet. It says, calling to those who pass by, who are making their paths straight. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks understanding, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. And so her invitation is far different than the invitation of Lady Wisdom. She's calling out to the same people. She's calling out to the naive, but it says that she's seeking those who are making their paths straight. What does that mean? If you're making your path straight, what are you trying to do?
They're trying to make the right choices.
You're trying to do the right thing. And you maybe don't have a lot of life experience. You maybe are not as wise as you could be because you're young, or because you're just not that experienced yet. But she's keying in on those people who are trying to do the right thing, who are trying to go the way they should go, and she's trying to take them off of that path. And what is she enticing them with? Stolen water is sweet. You're just, I don't even know what to say to that. You're taking people who are trying to walk the right path, and you're enticing them to take something that doesn't belong to them, to take something that they don't deserve or haven't earned or haven't, they shouldn't have possession of. And you're enticing them off of that straight and narrow path with promises of something that will never deliver. It just is not a good thing. And then the conclusion, verse 18, the conclusion of this whole narrative is the truth about Dame Folly's banquet. But he does not know that the dead are there. You can imagine walking the straight and narrow path, being enticed into the banquet of Dame Folly, and you go to sit down, and when you sit down at the table, who is around that table?
Dead people.
It's a bunch of cadavers, a bunch of dead people. That's all that are there. Her guests are in the depths of Sheol. That's a tragic scene.
That's not a good scene. No,
And
kind
so
of reminds you of a movie scene or something. It's kind of scary.
It is. And so once again, the choice is clear. You have the invitation of Lady Wisdom, who promises instruction and who promises a good and honorable and pleasant life. And you have Dame Folly, who offers death.
Not a tough decision.
It shouldn't be. But why is it so tough?
I don't know, because most of the people make the wrong choice, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. It seems so clear when you lay it out like that.
It does.
And then you live life, and all of a sudden
It gets muddied up a little bit.
It gets harder.
Yeah. Do we have any questions this week?
Oh, we have a list of questions this week. We do, yeah. We covered a lot of material this
Yeah,
week.
we did.
What does the book of Proverbs teach about our work ethic?
It does. It tells us about how we should work.
God hates what things and why?
He hates things.
He hates things. God, things that are contrary to his nature.
They are.
Yeah.
And he has a very specific nature. God cannot lie.
Right.
There are a lot of things about God's nature, and he doesn't like things that go against his nature. You're right.
What benefits are offered to the one who observes his or her father's commandment and his or her mother's teaching? How is the man who gives in to the seductress described, and how is the seductress described? What fruit is offered by wisdom? What does Lady Wisdom have to offer at her banquet? And how does a wise person react to instruction and discipline?
Excellent questions. Excellent questions. And so this week we're going to pick up with chapter 10,
Chapters 10 through
11,
13.
12,
I
and
guess.
13.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a different format in the book.
It will by necessity be a little bit different format to our discussion, I would think.
It probably will, but there's
Yeah.
so much good stuff in there.
Mhm.
And again, it's laid out in this black and white contrast. There's this, but that.
Yep.
The wise do this, the fool does that.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of good teaching.
It is.
Will you be able to be back next week?
Lord willing.
Lord willing, creek don't rise. I'll be here.
Creeks won't be rising from what I'm seeing in the weather.
Oh man. Well, maybe we can get a little
So-
sprinkle or something. But
Yeah.
we take what we get, and we're happy for it.
There you go.
Well, good to see you.
Good to see you.
See you again next time, Lord
All
willing.
right. Thank you, brother.
Bye bye.